All right. And what about you, Ricardo? Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Ricardo. I live at São Vicente, is south coast from São Paulo, and I'm married. I have a daughter, and I work at a telecommunications company. And well, I work in this field almost 30 years. So I I not work it, but I use it uh, a lot of different operational systems like DOS, probably. In my time, in that time, is it's the only operational system that's available, and that's it. I'm I'm
Oh,
pleasure a pleasure participate.
okay. My name is Jean. I'm 19. I live in Paraná. Right now I'm studying software engineering at the high school, at the college, and I work as backend developer. In my free time, I really like to play and watch soccer. I'm crazy about soccer, and of
Yeah,
course, I like to study English too. I think that's it. And right now, we can move on to
which
the
team?
questions. What? Can you
Which
repeat?
team?
Santos.
Uh,
And what
it's
about you?
São Paulo, but I
Okay,
was born in Santos and I live in São Vicente's neighbor.
next. Yeah,
Yeah.
but okay, let's move on to the questions. So, Ricardo, what operational system do you use on your personal computer, and why did you choose that over another?
Well, I use Windows 10, uh, version 10. Actually, it's convenient because, well, for example, uh, any release from Linux is very similar and it's not exactly different. Is there are some uh, new uh, implementations, so but it's similar. So in this case, I don't use another operational system. That's about a convenient because probably the Windows had already installed when I received my notebook and the others too. So I just keep it. But nowadays, Windows uh, is a very good operating system, stable and very fast. That's it. How about you, João?
I use I have Windows on my personal computer mainly because I used to play a lot of games. Nowadays, I don't play these games anymore. So I have my job computer, which is Linux. I tried to install Linux on my personal computer, but uh, I had to reset. So I was a little lazy about it, so I
Mhm.
did it. But I
Yeah.
intend to do it one day because nowadays I prefer. Because I just have to answer the door. I will be back right now.
Yes, in my case, I use Windows and Linux at the same computer. So I've done a dual boot, all right,
Hmm.
to start the this operational system. But my computer started with Windows when I bought it in the past.
Yeah.
But I installed by myself the Linux to use to study to learn a little bit more about Linux.
Uh-huh.
And my computer job is Linux too. So I
Okay.
I have these two operational system at my computer.
Uh-huh.
I've made a dual boot.
I
So
didn't mention, but I in the both computers, my personal and my computer for my work, I use the VM.
Yeah.
It is the operational system is Windows, but I have VM, Linux VM, a lot of.
Yeah, and it helps a lot, right? You don't need to install two operational systems at the same machine.
I prefer use just Windows because I think I believe that is depends on the computer, but normally is causes some problems when you install via dual boot.
Yeah. Fortunately, until now, I've not had some big problems. And
Exactly.
I think it's good too. Maybe dual boot or virtual machine. It's two
Yeah.
options to work with the different operational system. So let's move on. So João, what other operational system have you tried in addition to the one you currently use?
I think just that, but other versions of Windows also. Like I use Linux since 2021 when I started the job. I also tried Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows XP, and Windows 98. And definitely Windows XP was the most used by me because I was in a time that I just went to school. When I arrived school, I go to computer, so I use it almost every day, and I was very familiar with it. But nowadays, just use Windows 10 sometimes.
Yes, and what about you, Ricardo?
I'm an old guy, so probably I use all versions, all Windows versions. 93, 95, 98, ME, XP, I don't know, 2000, 2000, 2001, 2007, 8, 10. But about Linux, I not exactly. Normally, I use normally I have to access a system, and this system is using a Linux version. But normally I just execute a couple of commands. So, but I use Ubuntu, Red Hat, and the CentOS. That's it. I probably.
Yes, I think the oldest operational system that I have used was Windows XP. So I used the Windows
Yeah.
7, 8,
Uh,
8.1.
yeah, I
Yeah,
use DOS a lot of time because
yeah,
in that time it's just the only operational system. I have to boot my computer using the drive. Uh, yeah, Windows installed and on drive. Actually, not Windows. Actually, DOS installed on drive, and it's necessary put because in that time there aren't high drive in computer. It's just diskette.
yes. I've never used DOS, but I've searched, and I think it was a
Mhm.
hard time to use operational system. All right, but as I said, I started using Windows XP 7, 8, 8.1, 10, and right now the Windows 11.
Mhm.
I used to Linux, but just Ubuntu and Fedora. All right, I think it's one Red Hat version. Uh, and I think that's it. When you are talking about computer operational system, right? If you talk about mobile operational system, I've used Android and the OS from the Apple, all right? When you are talking about mobile operational system,
Yeah.
I think that's it. So let's move on to the question number 3. So, Ricardo, in your opinion, what is the biggest advantage of the operational system you use most compared to others?
Well, if you tell about the older computers like DOS, né? Nowadays Windows, for example, there is a, a much more friendly interface compared the DOS. But well, I prefer use Windows. I believe that Linux is a good operational system. Is possible to intervene more than Windows. It's possible to make some configurations compare Windows. Windows is more blocked, but believe that is Windows, in my opinion, is the best because it's much more stable. Depends on the application, but I believe it's even on servers because the Windows domain the word of the personal computers, but about servers, there are maybe more Linux than Windows, but nowadays Windows reach a great piece of the market, and I believe that I could choose Windows as the best, in my opinion.
Yes. And what about you, João? What do you think?
Um,
What is the biggest
I will,
advantage?
I will talk about Linux because it's the operational system that I use the most today. And as Ricardo said, is about configurations. Linux is very easier, and I am already used to use it. And for me, the possibility, no, the not possibility of having games in the computer for me is an advantage because it makes me more focused, and I am recently studying a lot, so uh, using Linux for me has a great advantage because of this, and it's like a space that I used to code and study, so it's what I'm doing now. But I agree that Windows is much more friendly, and I am most used to use Windows also because I use all my life. But in the moment, I'm not using like computer for personal things, for hobbies, for entertainment, and just to work and study.
Yes, in my case, as I said, I use the both at the same computer. I use the Windows and Linux. But I think when we're talking about Linux, we have more control about what we can do at the operational system. But right now, the Windows 11, it was so good, and we can use the Linux inside Windows with WSL. I don't know if you guys know, but we can use, and I think it's so good because we can use. We don't need a really a virtual machine, all right? Uh, and we don't need a dual boot exactly, so you can use the Linux inside the Windows together. So I think talking about Windows, I in my case that I work with with programming, it's a good point about it's a good advantage of Windows 11 that we not just with Windows 11 or Windows 10 too, but about the Windows we can use the Linux together with the WSL, and I think that's a good advantage of the Windows. So I think that's it. So let's move on to the question number 4. So, João, do you think operation system have a significant impact on how people use technology? Why?
I think yes, because um, being friendly makes people makes people closer to the technology. I think, for example, uh, I'll I use the example of mobile because on mobile this is stronger, but as mobiles turns more friendly, more people start using. For example, it's faster nowadays, it's easier to use, it's more intuitive. So I'm seeing a lot of older people that didn't have cell phone, didn't use that much, but nowadays using not just for calling, not just for writing text, but using also for Instagram, for YouTube, for Facebook. And I think that's a consequence of the mobiles being more friendly to the users.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what your point of view, Ricardo?
Yeah, I agree with João about the friendly interface. Certainly nowadays everyone uses a computer because the operational systems. For example, if you just uh, use the CLI or DOS, or, for example, particular children or elderly people probably don't you wouldn't use the a computer. And there is another fact. It's not a good exactly a good point, but Windows domain domained the market fastly. So the fact of the Windows domain the market, a lot of software developers use create softwares to fix to Windows. And I believe that if you there weren't a lot of different operational systems, maybe it's caused a little confused, like some I don't know, for example, Brazilian plug, because I create a different how to say padrão is pattern. I don't
Better.
know.
Yeah.
So in this case, a long time ago, there are some problems because there are a different operational systems, Novell and others, about network pattern. So Windows help in this subject. So in this case, I believe that the mankind could enjoy more because the Windows, but probably if you create another operating systems, maybe the mankind could enjoy another different situations. It's like a war. No? War is a horrible thing, but there are some advantages. I don't know if you could
A
use
lot of
this word.
innovations. All right.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yes, I agree with you. And when you are talking about operational system, and the currently operational system, it's so easy to learn how to use it. All right. We have kids that learn so fast how to use it. For example, my grandma don't know how to read, but he learned how to use operational system. Talking about Android, all right. So I think it's a good point of the operational system of nowadays. because it's so intuitive to learn. It's so easier, and people don't need to have a good knowledge about technology to use it. For example, if you talk about the oldest operational system, probably you would need a lot of computer knowledge to use operational system. But right now, you don't need it. You can learn faster how to use an operational system. For example, it's more common to use the mobile operational system. But I think this aspect of the operational system to be easier to learn and fast, I think it's a good point of the currently OS in the market. All right, that's it. So let's move on to the question number 5. So Ricardo, how do you believe operation system can impact people's productivity?
Well, if I mention on the past, the people use I don't remember the cartões perfurados. I don't remember. I have never used it, but certainly there are a lot of problems if you use this way until today. But well, there is a problem because the operational system transform or became the computer faster and fluently, but depends on the machine. If you had a old server, maybe it's better use Linux. But normally the operational systems, how do you say, let the computer smarter, if you could use this word, and
Yeah,
faster, because they control the flux of data and they use the memory and the hard drive. If you don't have operational systems, certainly there are a lot of causing a lot of problems. So it's one of the the items of the rule about productive. And then, for example, the office package, I don't know, is transform our routine. Certainly the Excel and Word, there are wonderful tools. If you wonder, oh, if you don't have worksheet, is causing, it will cause a lot of problems. So it's nice. Windows. Sometimes there are some people tell about the conspiracy theory. That's the Bill Gates still the networking technology and a lot of different, but anyone could prove this thing. So I could mention that Bill Gates create a operating system that's transforming our world. That's it.
yeah. I think the most of the people start using Windows, all right.
Certainly.
So I think because it's so popular in our
Mhm.
nowadays.
Yeah.
And what about you, João? What do you think? How do you believe operation system can impact people productivity?
I agree with Ricardo. There was a huge difference in the past, and I'm a person who rise using slow computers and slow mobiles, so I felt this difference very hard. Maybe it's not as much as Ricardo, but because there was really complicated operational systems to use. But I always have problems with freezing, with latency, with low CPU, and my productivity, the games that I played, the works that I had to do for college, for school, wasn't very productive because of this. But nowadays, I using Linux with in a good notebook for me is much more productive. Like my Windows notebook is a little bit slow, but I wonder if you have for example, the best version of Mac OS with a lot of screens, your productivity just goes supreme. And the same thing for mobiles. Like I heard that iPhones usually freeze less than Android. And okay, my Android is not slow, but it freezes sometimes. But if it didn't freeze, I think I would be much more productive also. And this speed makes us more productive for sure.
Yes. As I said, it's so easier to learn uh, to use Windows for the most of the people. The most of the people start using Windows, and it's so intuitive to find, for example, the tools that you wanna use. For example, if you need to use an operational system by a command line interface, probably we'll have more difficulty and we will spend more time uh, trying to find something to that you want to do. But currently, the most of the operational system right has a user interface and a guide, all right? So with kind of tools, it's easier to do the things faster than by command line. And I think it, of course, can boost our productivity because we will not spend a lot of time to do easier things, all right? So we don't need to spend a lot of time to find some options or some tools that we will need to do some tasks. And of course, we do things faster than in the past when the all of the operational system was by command line, for example. Right now we have a lot of user interface that can help us to be more productivity, to improve our productivity. So let's move on to the question number 6. So João, do you believe that operation system should be customized to meet people's individual needs, or should they standardize to most people?
I think it would be amazing if they were customized to each people, to people's individual needs. But I think this is a hard way to sell, for example. So I don't believe this will happen ever. Maybe if it's a very customizable operational system, and then you buy a standard version, then you can customize using it. For example, okay, I think I will enter in the next question a little bit, but Linux is very customizable. There are a lot of distributions. There are a lot of different interface people use. Of course, there is also to Windows, but Windows, as Ikat said, is mod blockage. So Windows, so Linux is more customizable, and this gives the user the option of using the version that fits better to him. And that's interesting because everyone has a different preference. And I already searched about some distributions of Linux, and I found some that I think it would be better for me. And I would love to try. I would love to have the power of choosing which one is better for me. And I think, sorry, and I think
There are some,
Yeah, I
it's
think
occurring
that
some problems, internet problem,
yeah.
transmission.
it's a great possibility, and you're listening now.
Yeah, right
Okay,
now
I
I
think I'm
can
back.
hear it. Yeah, I can
Okay,
see you.
so I think that open source makes the operational system more free, more open, more customizable, and that's a good thing. But for selling in the first version, it would be a standard version. Then when you buy, you can customize it.
Yes. As you said, I don't believe that we'll have individual operational system to sell. But I hope that, for example, Windows and Mac OS uh, give us the option to customize the operational system like Linux, for example. So I don't think that in the future all of the operational system will be standardized, um, like Windows or Mac OS. And I hope that we have the possibility to custom the this blocked operational system that it's so hard to modify nowadays. And what about you, Ricardo? What do you think
Uh,
about the question 6?
well, from the developer's perspective, when the developers like Windows or Apple are developing an operational system, is much more. It's better if you just use a pattern, and this pattern is possible to choose to the. I believe is better when you use the same system, the same pattern for the the a maior quantidade de pessoas. And so how about this perspective is much more profitable for developers because it's not necessary create a lot of different implementations.
I think it's
So
cheaper to the company too, all right?
exactly, and it's possible to some the consumers uh, could receive some profitables too because the operational system became cheaper from the customers too. I believe that is the most part of the people don't need uh, individual changes. So I believe that is the nowadays is possible to become the computer, the operational system more personal for you, more fit for you. Certainly, if you work at developing softwares or another tools, it's necessary some changes. But I believe that's, I don't know, 90% of the world uses the same pattern is enough for these people. But there are some people. So in this case, the Windows or another developers could create another version to this this part of the consumers.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah. And talking about the question number 7, do you think open source operation systems are better than proprietary ones? Why?
Uh, it's much more expensive, and
Yeah.
if you had problems, for example, Windows or Mac OS, it's possible to make a research on the internet. But how about the open sources, and that the system was changed for the user? You could cause a different bug or any kind of problem. And the open sources, there is a uh, some people tell about, oh, it's cheaper, but actually it's not exactly a right fact, because if you had some problem with the operational system using Linux, for example, is much more expensive if you hire a specialist, because it's not possible to reach answer on the internet in the others situations. So I believe that that's use Windows for the most part of the implementation of the case, and there are a specific case that you is possible to use in open source operational systems like Linux, for example. That's it.
Yeah. When you're talking about an open source operational system, there are a community that build it, all right? It's not a specific company like
Hmm.
the Microsoft.
Exactly.
When we are talking about Windows, probably if you have some problem, we can find an specialist of Windows from Microsoft to help us to solve
Hmm.
some problem. But when you are talking about Linux, for example, that there is a community that created, uh, we
Hmm.
probably don't we have an specialized support to help us. So I don't think that open source operation system is better uh, than a proprietary operational system because of this point of view. When we have some problem, probably it will be easier to find an specialist to help us when you're talking about proprietary operational system like Mac OS or Windows. Uh, but I don't think that open source it's bad just because it. All right. We have a lot of people that help to create the open source OS, and probably if you have some problem, we will find someone that can help us too. But I think it's hardest when we compare with the Windows or Mac OS, for example. But as I said, we have a community that builds the OS, and probably we will find someone to help us with some problem. And what about you, João? What do you think about this topic?
Yes, I agree with with you guys said that I don't know, but if it is a company maintaining the system with a huge money involved as Windows, it will be much more updated than the open source versions because, of course, depends on the the level of the open source, how used is it, if there is any sponsorship, if there is any other companies behind. But when you are a huge company with a huge product that is not open source, the company depends on maintaining this system, and and it's updated very frequently as Windows is, as each like 2 years, 3 years, there's a new Windows version distribution for us to update, to use, and it's easier to find specialists, as you said. But open source has your advantages. Is more is free to us to use. For example, if you want to have a project of a new Linux distribution, you can do it by yourself. There's no problem on this. It wouldn't happen on Windows, but you can customize it some way. But we don't have the access to the source code, but this makes the that Windows is updated more frequently because of the company. You're
I'm
muted.
muted. Yeah. So, guys, our time is ending. So let's move on to the question number 9. I think it's interesting. So, João, do you think operation systems are an important factor when choosing a computer? Why?
I think that yes, for most of the people, uh, but not the same reasons that would use. For example, a lot of people wouldn't even consider buying a Linux, that's for sure. And a lot of people consider buying macOS just because it's an Apple's product, just because it's more expensive and all those status involved. But I think a lot about performance and usability for my use case. As I said, coding and studying. So probably the next computer I will buy, it wouldn't be on Windows. It could be on Windows and I install Linux or make a dual boot after, but nowadays I am more close to the idea of having a computer for coding and studying and emails, for example, and I don't know, an Xbox or a PlayStation for gaming when I want. I think that the computer keeps healthier. We jumped to the question number 8, but Linux has much less problems with virus, with malwares than Windows. And so consoles have much less problems with virus and malwares than computers. So I think that both would keep alive for a long time and keep performing well for a long time. And that would be my option today. But there's a lot of different reasons.
Yes. And what about you, Ricardo? Do you think that operation system is important when you will choose a computer?
I believe that's, how about number 9?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I believe that nowadays, particularly if you tell about the personal computers, I believe that is not so relevant if you use Windows or Linux, because nowadays the most part of the computers had a good quantity of memory and the processor is fast. So
We have the same apps to the both too, the most of
yeah,
time.
maybe if you, I don't know, if you use a specific use, I don't know if you use a software that use a lot of memory in the processor from this computer, maybe you could use Linux and change some tools and let more memory in the processor for this specific tool. But I believe that is the most part of the case is probably is not relevant. You could choose a computer, and after that you could choose the operational system, I believe. But I don't know if you had a old computer, probably is better use Linux, because if you use, for example, Windows 10, probably you consume just for use the operational systems, use all of the resources, memory and the processor. That's it.
Yes. When you are talking about to go to the a store and buy a computer, probably the most of people will choose Windows, because if a people choose buy a Linux computer and haven't idea how to use it, probably we need to pay to someone to install the Windows, to change the operational system, and we need to spend more money. All right. So because I think it's important you know on the operational system of the computer that you are choosing, because if you haven't knowledge how to change the operational system, how to format your computer, or make a dual boot, for example, probably you will need to pay to someone to do it for you. So because it's good to have an idea of what computer are you choosing and what operational system that computer already have installed from the factory. All right, and don't need to pay someone to change the operational system. Guys, unfortunately, we have more time to continue answering the question, but to finish, I will share with you a survey link here. Can you see on the chat?
Yeah.
This link,
Yes.
you can, yes, you can share if you like or dislike this topic, and I'd like that you share with me some topics that you would like to talk about on the next weeks. All right, and I will prepare the material, choose a video, and write the question, and I will bring to us to talk about technology on the next week. So please, uh, share if you like or dislike this topic, and what about you'd like to talk on the next weeks. All right, and I will prepare the material. I think that's it, and I hope that you have liked it to talk about operational system today, and I hope see all of you on the next week here again to talk about another topic of technology.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right.
Sure.
Have a wonderful day for you, Gian, and João. And
Yeah, for you too,
well,
Ricardo.
until next week.
I hope see
See
all
you
of you next
guys.
week here again. See you
Okay, my friend.
guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Till next week.